What a turnaround in fortunes the Bahrain Grand Prix was for Red Bull compared to the Japanese Grand Prix a week ago. From a comfortable race win to battling an Alpine for 6th place, Verstappen and his Red Bull suffered in the heat. Red Bull had to find the perfect setup to pull off that incredible result at Suzuka, but they couldn't do the same in the Middle East. Some embarrassing pit stop failures didn't help, and following the race, Red Bull went into crisis mode, with senior staff meeting to try and dissect what was happening to them this season. With Marko claiming that Verstappen is on the brink of leaving, what is going wrong for Red Bull this season? And how worried do they need to be about losing Max? Well, let's check it out. Oscar Piastri looked imperious in Bahrain as he comfortably converted his pole position into a race win, despite a late safety car and a soft tyre-shod Mercedes looking threatening. Piastri was his usual calm self in the lead, and despite taking his 4th win in 50 race starts, he insisted that he wouldn't be a part of the epic party that the rulers of Bahrain would be putting on for the team due to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix being next weekend. His teammate Lando Norris performed well, recovering from 6th on the grid to a podium finish, and almost had Russell on the final lap of the race, which would have earned the team a second 1-2 finish of the season. Norris was very negative about his performance levels over the weekend, and in search of the perfection required to beat a peak Verstappen and Red Bull, you would have to agree with him. Luckily for Lando though, this is not peak Verstappen and Red Bull at the moment, and Norris retains his lead in the Drivers' Championship with a 3-point gap to his teammate. Qualifying in Bahrain wasn't the first time Norris has fallen short of his own sky-high expectations though, with the Chinese Grand Prix sprint race being another standout failure in pursuit of a first-ever Drivers' Championship. Piastri isn't free from error either though, with that trip off track in Australia costing him dearly. If things continue as they've started, then cutting out those mistakes could be the difference between a Drivers' Championship and a second-place finish for one of the McLaren drivers. As I said, it's lucky for McLaren that Red Bull is stumbling at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda's 9th place finish was the first time the second Red Bull car has scored points since the 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix, and that is reason to celebrate, but overall, this was a disappointing weekend for the team. Verstappen struggled to a 6th place finish, though he certainly wasn't helped by 2 very slow pit stops. His 1-point deficit to the Drivers' Championship leader grew to 8, but worse than that was the manner in which he laboured through the whole weekend. There was no miracle turnaround like a week before. Red Bull never looked to be in contention with McLaren, and even worse was the fact that Ferrari's new floor seemed to do them some good, as Hamilton improved from 9th to 5th and Leclerc only lost a place to the recovering Norris. Verstappen's feelings after the race were clear as day. He was furious. Speaking to Viaplay, the interviewer said, "Lots to discuss today," to which Max responded by saying, "For you." The interviewer then followed up with, "For you guys and for the team in the studio, right? Lots to say to the team?" To which Max said, "At the moment, no, I don't feel like it." This was not the occasionally tongue-in-cheek jokey Verstappen. You could see from his face he was in absolutely no mood to step into a debrief with his team. He felt let down. Red Bull are normally the masters of the pit stop, but yesterday it was a shambles. Their automatic lights didn't work, meaning Verstappen and Tsunoda were sat still in their pit box for a few painful seconds, waiting for a green light which never came. Then on his second stop, Max's front right tyre wouldn't come off, keeping him stationary for a few seconds longer than normal. A couple of seconds here and there might seem like nothing, but it makes the difference. Yesterday, it was the difference between a last lap overtake for 6th place and potentially catching the Ferraris. What was worse though was the performance on the hard compound tyre. That second stint was a disaster for Max. He was dropped by the Haas of Esteban Ocon and passed by Mercedes driver Andrea Kimi Antonelli and Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton, falling all the way to 9th. As the track quietened on Sunday evening and the fans headed home, things at Red Bull were not calming down. The Red Bull management team was seen by a number of reporters heading into a crisis meeting in the paddock. Christian Horner, Technical Director Pierre Vache, Chief Engineer Paul Monahan, and Helmut Marko convened to debrief and plan for the future as their season appears to be falling apart. Perhaps worse was the meeting that was seen between Verstappen's manager Raymond Vermeulen and Helmut Marko. But before we talk about that, if you're enjoying the video and want to catch all the news and analysis from this season, then make sure to give it a like and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks a lot. So after the race, Helmut Marko spoke to reporters about Red Bull's weekend. It's a very difficult day for Red Bull, that's obvious to all of us. We have to get, as soon as possible, performance in the car again, and also standards like a pit stop have to work. The car is not the fastest, and then the pit stops are not working. That is not acceptable. When asked by Autosport how concerning Red Bull's Bahrain performance was, Marko replied, "Very alarming. We know that we're not competitive, and there will be parts coming in the coming races, and hopefully they bring improvement. We have a lot of problems. The main problem is balance and grip. And out of this, so I guess the problems with the brakes come up. And then the normal procedure like a pit stop is not working, so one issue comes after the other." A big part of Red Bull's problem at the moment is how hard they're having to push to try and compete with those ahead of them. When you're dominating every race, it's easy to set the car up to be a bit kinder, or for the drivers to break a meter or two earlier, knowing that the lost tenth of a second over a lap won't make a difference to the result. When you're in the fight and you have to set your car up on the edge of drivability, the drivers have to brake as late as possible and get on the power as hard and fast as they can. And that amplifies all the existing problems in the car. The performance of the RB21 has become so bad that Red Bull now have serious concerns over retaining Max Verstappen for next season. Sky Sports reporter Ted Kravitz reported that he saw Raymond Vermeulen, Max Verstappen's manager, giving helmet Marko a big piece of his mind after the race, after which Vermeulen stormed off. Marko was seen taking the tirade and, presumably, passed on Raymond's concerns in the management meeting later that evening. Marko recently declared an exit clause in Verstappen's contract could become a topic of conversation around the summer break. The four-time champion has been linked with a departure from the team over the last 12 months, with Mercedes and Aston Martin labelled as potential destinations. When asked how big the worries are that Verstappen could opt to leave, Marko replied, "Those are very big. Improvements have to be made in the near future so that he has a car he can win with. It shouldn't be a fluke like in the rain in Brazil or in Japan. There, the tracks came to him and he set a magic lap. There has to be a stable base." For Marko to come out so publicly and say that the team are worried about retaining Verstappen for next season, you have to take it at face value. There isn't a PR spin where saying you might lose the best driver in the sport because your car is underperforming is ever going to be a good thing. There can't be any advantage to be gained from that. Max may be contracted until 2028, but the release clauses exist and he has the power to exercise them if he wants to. However, the team isn't giving up on him just yet. Christian Horner said after the race, "The team are very much focused on developing the car, and hopefully over the next few races, there are some updates that are introduced that address the issues raised. This race has exposed some pitfalls that we very clearly have that we need to get on top of quickly. We understand where the issues are, but introducing the solutions takes a bit longer. We have a strong technical team that has produced some of the best race cars in the world in the past few seasons, so I'm confident that we can turn things around." That is a lot of pretty classic team principal talk, but this time it doesn't inspire confidence. Red Bull's stated aim for the winter was to widen the setup window of the car to make it easier for the team to find a comfortable and competitive setup. That would then allow the drivers to push the car with more confidence and create a good base for developing the performance of the car over the year. They failed at that though, and the car got fussier, less willing to comply with what the team wanted from it. For Red Bull fans, there should be very little confidence in a fix coming anytime soon, as despite Horner's claims, Red Bull don't appear to understand their issues, otherwise they would have fixed them over the winter like they said they would. What do you think of Red Bull's race in Bahrain? Do you think Verstappen could really be on his way out of the team? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.